One of the opportunities of doing a Spider-Verse movie is you get to show so many different permutations of what Spider-Man can be.
What we're finding out is that there's a richness and a freshness that comes from hearing those different voices and those different stories. Knowing that I'm watching a classic Spider-Man story and yet seeing it from this completely new prism.
I thought I was the only one. You're like me.
I don't want to be.
You can watch this movie and believe that you could also be a superhero. We all have that power in us.
Anyone can wear the mask with great power.
Don't you dare finish that sentence. Don't do it. I'm sick of it.
It's a new take on Spider-Man. I think it's just that simple. Miles is black and Puerto Rican.
Seguro que sí.
He represents a character that a lot of people can connect with. That diversity he adds brings conversation to what Spider-Man is and should be.
That message and the way in which it's packaged and put together is very timely, very positive, and very relevant, and very real for a lot of people.
When do I know I'm Spider-Man?
I am Miles Morales.
All fairness, it was so overdue to do the Miles story. Because it's one thing to say everybody can be under the mask. It's another thing for children to see themselves. It's like a mirror.
It felt natural. I mean, you open your front door and walk down the street in New York, you're gonna see Miles Morales. You know, that's just part of life. In a way, for us, it's just acknowledging a reality that's already out there. It was really important for us that telling Miles' story, that we captured those things that touched on his heritage.
Where's my laptop?
Where did you last put it?
Just to see this middle-class family in Brooklyn, and this kid goes to this academy. Like, I know people like that.
Mom, I gotta go.
He's an ordinary kid from a really good family, right? I mean, his parents work, they're professionals, and they have a wonderful home life.
We're used to the Spider-Man where that doesn't exist. It was really nice to have a superhero and a young child who has that strong foundation.
Spider-Man?
This is a real kid from a real family in a real place that many of us recognize, many of us are.
I love you, Miles.
Yeah, I know that.
You gotta say I love you back.
I love you.
That's a copy.
My advice? Go back to being a regular kid.
I don't have a choice.
It's not just about black or white or color. I just think it's about what he's representing. He has a different energy. Peter is a little bit more chosen. Miles is more, I don't want this. You're kind of forcing this on me, and if I have to, then I will.
He is struggling to establish his own identity in a world that seems to have chosen an identity for him.
It just emphasizes how it feels to be a kid who is also having to be a superhero, a kid who's Puerto Rican and African American and doesn't maybe totally feel all one thing or all the other. I think that's just heightens the emotional experience that has always been underneath Spider-Man.
No, I have to learn to be Spider-Man.
Who are you again?
This is Miles, and he's gonna save the multiverse.
Yeah, man.
Shameik has some kind of superpower himself that he can write things in his magic journal and manifest them in real life.
Before this movie was even a twinkle in anyone's eye, Shameik was working on a movie and his castmate gave him a journal and told him to write stuff in it and use the power of positivity to make them come true.
I wrote down, I am Miles Morales on the front page, and I am Spider-Man on the back. I was meditating, I was connecting with my inner self in the universe, and boom, 2 years later, look at this. This is reality now. I'm here.
The thing about Shameik is that he wears his heart on his sleeve. He's such a warm, positive, hopeful kind of person, and that sincerity comes through in his performance of Miles, and it makes him so endearing.
Whoa, Brooklyn!
It's only natural that everybody reading comics would seek to include all genders, all races, all different kinds of people under the mask of Spider-Man.
Hey, guys.
Wanda?
I like the idea that we're all Spider-Man and that Spider-Man can also be women. We all want to know that we can rise to the occasion.
We actually brought in 2 female Spider-Men. One is Spider-Gwen, Gwen Stacy from one universe. The other is Penny Parker, who comes from a future version of New York.
No matter how many times you get hit, can you get back up?
Spider-Gwen is full of knowledge and energy and life, and she's incredibly competent. I think that's really important for all girls, just to have somebody who they can look up to.
It's kind of nice not being the only spider person around.
She's a natural leader, and she is the smartest one in the room, and she knows it. And there's something about that quality that is very likable and admirable, and she's quite inspiring.
Nice to meet you.
Sure. Total pleasure.
Gwen brings this energy, like she's powerful. She's telling Miles what to do, and you know, she's the strength, I would say.
I mean, I've always dreamed of playing a superhero. So having this opportunity in this film has been amazing. And it's not only Spider-Gwen that is a female superhero in this film.
Hi, guys. Konnichiwa. Hajimemashite. Yoroshiku. At first glance, Penny appears to be just like any other uniformed schoolgirl headed to class, but Penny pilots the mech suit against villains across the Spider-Verse with the heart of a hero.
Some people would probably say Asian cultures are the least represented on screen, so it was really nice to be part of something that shines a light on another awesome character, not only like Asian American, but also a woman.
Can you rewire a mainframe while being shot at?
Her and Gwen, I think, take center stage, and they're sort of the toughest spider folks in on the whole team.
Let's end this thing.
It's a really powerful idea that in order to be a hero, you can still bring your spin to it, your personality to it, that uniqueness is what makes you great.
We are all Spider-Man.
Miles, when he discovers what's truly inside of him and that make him special, that's when he's able to be Spider-Man. And I think that's the journey we're all on.
There's so many thousands of stories out there waiting to be told. We're ready. It's time.
Yeah, I'm the new Spider-Man.
The young generation, they don't see it. They don't see color. They don't see ethnicity.
I think it just adds to the perspective. It's just more representation.
It's really just about us taking the belief in ourselves and being brave and courageous to be our own kind of superhero.
I'm so happy that my child gets to live in a time where there are more diverse voices with a more accurate reflection of the changing world that we live in. And it's done so dynamically.
Guys, I'm Spider-Man. I'm not the only one. Not by a long shot.
Spider-Verse has a really awesome look. State-of-the-art 3D animation.
The movie's like a comic book that's come to life.
It's like nothing audiences have seen before.
Hey there. This was a chance to push the medium of animation to a place it hasn't gone before.
I mean, it was a real love letter to comic books. I wanted you to be able to freeze any frame and it looked like a work of art, something that might have been done by hand.
We're gonna make it so different. We're gonna make it so unique. The battle cry was like, go too far.
It all comes back to wanting the movie to feel like we did when we were in a comic shop as kids.
Phil and Chris, once they came on board, you just know that they're going to get inventive.
Can't be that easy.
You know, there have been a lot of movies based on comic books, but none of them have felt like you could walk into a comic book and have it surround you and feel like you were inside of a living painting.
Phil Lord and Chris Miller are crazy funny. They're crazy ambitious.
They gave us this task and also this fuel to really challenge ourselves.
And they very much helped create an environment that allowed a lot of the people on this movie to try things that they might have always dreamed of trying, but had never been given the platform.
Does look cool though, right?
The mixture of 2D animation and 3D animation are obviously meant to evoke comic books, the source material that Spider-Man comes from.
The idea that it isn't just CG animation, but that we're actually hand drawing on top of the CG is a brand new idea.
Using illustration and hand-drawn imagery from the old days of animation was something we wanted to infuse our movie with, because that's how comic books are made.
And to incorporate that all together in animation, but comic book melted together form. It was a new challenge for us.
Every single frame of a comic book really expresses as much story as it could in one frame. You know, there's a dynamism and a sort of a strength and a boldness to the way comics are presented to you. And so we tried to do that in our animation.
We did a lot of animation testing, and we found out pretty early on that in order to capture the spirit of the comic books, we'd animate on twos. And so what that means is in a traditional animation where you would see every frame change, sometimes we would hold frames for 2 or 3 frames.
When there's 24 frames a second, instead of doing all 24, you 12, and the mind fills in the gaps between them. It makes it feel more graphic. There is a clarity and a crispness in that. So we latched into that as an aesthetic that I think made it feel more like a comic book.
Pay attention.
Storyboards and comic books are very similar. We'll look back and go, okay, where can we do multi-panel here, or do like the sound effect that if somebody's punching.
That's new.
We actually use literal panelization on the screen, like a split screen, dividing it to, 2, 3, 4 panels on screen. It's a pretty neat device because you can relay a lot of information in just one shot, technically, with multiple shots happening within that.
So it completely could change up the pacing of the sequence, give you a special impact for when they're fighting, or slow it down.
If you are a character who lives inside a comic book, the world would look like it's made out of art. And I wanted the audience to experience that art.
We had to be super considered when using text and any of those sort of graphic elements on screen as you'd see in a comic book. It really packed a punch.
The text on screen, it's all meant to be expressive. It had to heighten your engagement with the story, where it didn't live in the movie.
Comic books, like jazz, it's an American art. Today, the influence of comics and the artistry is so big. Time to use it.
We were really searching for a visual language that supported the way the movement made you feel.
You know, there have been other Spider-Man movies, great Spider-Man movies. We have to live up to that legacy.
We all felt like we would never get another chance to push a movie in this direction.
Every time we said, make it crazier, push it farther, Sony ImageWorks Animation would say, that's going to be really difficult, but that's really exciting.
I would come into work every day excited to see what new thing we were going to invent.
You don't get to make that many of these things, so you want them to be as unique as possible. Figured, let's leave it all on the field.
My name is Peter Parker.
When you're making the 9th, depending on how you score it, Spider-Man movie,
We don't really talk about this.
you have a burden to make new choices. We just questioned everything. It gave us a lot of freedom because we knew we were in an alternate dimension. It forced us to do it differently.
This could literally not get any weirder.
It can get weirder.
I've never worked so closely with so many departments before because there were so many new things we were trying to do with this movie. I think we all had to really work together as a team to figure out how are we going to do this.
All the hopes and dreams, all the imagery starts with the images that we get from the art department. We really did want to find a new look.
With each character, we definitely wanted to keep them distinctly different.
A lot of experiments, a lot of failures. As we took the imagery from the art department and we started with our tests, we found things that we didn't expect. And there was this really cool back and forth. The whole process just sort of fed into itself.
Most Spider-Man movies have one spider. The whole idea of the Spider-Verse is, what is Spider-Man?
Having all the different characters all live together in the same frame was a really cool opportunity.
To see a really saturated Spider-Ham next to a completely black and white Spider-Noir.
You're like me.
That was like the whole idea.
My name is Peter B. Parker.
We knew we wanted to have Peter Parker in the movie, but we also knew we wanted to have Peter Parker in the movie in a way you've never seen him before.
Oh, geez, are those sweatpants?
We chose to show you Peter Parker basically at age 38, 39, 40.
He's kind of slobby, kind of overweight.
I love this burger, so delicious.
He's not your typical Peter.
20 years in, what kind of problems does he have in his life?
You look older. and thicker.
Yeah, I've heard that already.
We had a lot of meetings about what his body should look like. We're crowded around the computer, like making his gut different sizes, you know, bigger, 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 nope, too big, smaller, 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 smaller. Design-wise, it was about finding this perfect Peter Parker who is a little slower, a little bigger, and a body that expresses his mental state.
I'm very focused.
He's questioning whether he still wants to be Spider-Man or why he ever did want to be Spider-Man or whether it was worth it.
My name is Penny Parker.
You know, the original inspiration for Penny and SPDR was obviously anime. Let's go back to what inspired the comic book and use that.
We wanted it to be really obvious just by looking at her and any way she moved that you knew she's from clearly another universe. And as much as she presents as a little girl in a skirt, she'll cut you. She's intense.
And she strikes really 2D and anime-inspired poses.
Design affects character in so many ways in what that character is able to do. With the robot SPDR, it was initially like this big sort of tank kind of thing.
We wanted something that brought a spider a little more to mind, something that felt as futuristic as we could make it look within the believability of our movie. We also wanted it to be able to have a range of emotion from cute to badass.
My name is Peter Parker.
Well, Spider-Man Noir was obviously based significantly from the comics.
Comics from the 30s were very much like crime and detective type stories.
And I like to fight Nazis.
He's rendered in a much simpler, not just black and white, but the shading on him is much more simple. We wanted him to pop as if he was from another time, another place.
Even when he fights in our movie, he's kind of more of a brawler.
I had to go back and research Victorian style boxing and how did they do, you know, they're doing more like this or like this, and then trying to shoot it a little bit more noir style.
Wherever we could, we tried to get the life and spirit of the comics into our movie.
My name is Peter Porker.
Peter Porker, AKA Spider-Ham. He was our little sort of silver bullet. From day one, we were like, this guy's gonna be in the movie, this guy's gonna be in the movie. We just have to make him relevant. Because initially people were maybe a little bit worried about putting a pig in the movie.
Can you float through the air when you smell a delicious pie?
Spider-Ham quickly became the favorite. He's probably the least superhero-looking character that I've ever seen. We've tried to keep his feel even in our worlds, but he's definitely the wackiest of our characters.
I frolic and I dance and I do this with my pants and my...
enough.
We wanted to treat him as a classic, you know, Chuck Jones, Tex Avery, Warner Brothers cartoon.
You got a problem with cartoons?
It's 40s, 50s animation, squash and stretch. And then we kind of tried to take that idea and we put him next to all these superheroes. He's also a superhero, so he's got to take himself seriously. And then we have him fight in ways that are pretty tough.
In spite of how silly he is, he's just as tough and he's just as strong as any other Spider person out there.
We put a lot of work into Gwen and thinking about her. In her design, one of the things that we wanted was a character who was strong. We didn't want her to be too waifish or too thin. We wanted her to be physically strong, mentally strong, because in the movie, the character is actually maybe the most accomplished Spider-Man at that moment. She's a little older than Miles. She's been a Spider person for a couple of years. She's really in her prime.
She's super assured, this real cool mix of like hard and soft.
Her costume is pretty much exactly what's in the comics.
She had a ballet background, but she has that muscle memory that she can call on and use as a skill. It's her style of fighting.
Nice to meet you.
Sure.
We loved that we could use Miles's awkwardness in discovering his powers to play a part and give her this really kind of cool, punky hairstyle that seemed to fit the attitude of the character.
I like your haircut.
You don't get to like my haircut.
We had gone through some earlier designs where she was a lot more kind of really just perfect. We wanted to do things like give her the gap in her teeth and give her a slightly less ideal nose to make her feel a little bit more like somebody you could bump into walking down the street and kind of make her as relatable as like Miles is or Peter or any of the other characters.
You know, the cool thing about getting to introduce Miles was we all have these expectations of who Spider-Man is or was.
This kid can turn himself invisible. Watch this.
I can't do it on command.
He can't do it on command.
When you put a character who is multicultural, bilingual, in that suit, the cool thing about that was this is a whole new Spider-Man story.
He's a kid and he's African American and Puerto Rican.
Mom, I gotta go.
In a minute. So for me, I was going like, okay, who is Miles? He's got to have that swagger and a little bit more innocent because he's a kid. You want him to be unique. Stop sticking!
Swinging through the streets
Keep sticking, Miles.
Miles has just got his powers. You know, he's clumsy. Even when Miles is acting like a superhero and he's doing heroic things.
Miles making his suit, that was a huge story point for us. First of all, not even wanting these powers, then not knowing how to deal with them, not wanting to embrace them. So him making his suit was sort of the ultimate stamp on, I am owning this, and he's doing it his way.
Miles? It's about time, right?
We were after something that people hadn't seen before.
We just wanted everybody to come from a really distinct world. But it all comes back to wanting the movie to feel like we did when we were in a comic shop as kids.
Kid who's African-American, Puerto Rican, who's buddies with a pig, some old dude from the 1930s, and a robot from the future. That's personally the Spider-Man that I want to see.
I think the thing I'm proudest of is the fact that people of all ages seem to love Spider-Man. People come over to me and they're so warm and friendly, and all they want to do is talk about Spider-Man. If you've spent your life working on something and you find out that the fans love what you have done and can't wait to tell you how pleased they are and to thank you for what you've written and done for them, it's an experience I can't even describe how wonderful that feels and how grateful that makes me feel.
Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, goes without saying, they're legends within the comic book industry. They go past legend and into mythology.
To this day, it's the thing that people literally have to imitate.
Both sensibilities really combine to form something unique.
The two pieces of Spider-Man, Ditko and Stan, everything Ditko drew was iconic. Everything Stan wrote was iconic and kind.
And I think the two of them combining their powers created one of the greatest characters probably of all time anywhere.
When it all started, people looked at comics as Bazooka Joe. They didn't get the fact that his brilliance was about the metaphors. Every power that you see is to help us understand ourselves and others.
What you're seeing in the birth of the real age of Marvel Comics is not only Stan's voice, which was clearly a voice you could identify as different than other writers. You have artists coming in who had developed or were developing a voice that was clearly signature and different from what would be the standard.
When I came up with the idea, and when I saw the way Steve Ditko drew it, I was very pleased. It was just what I had in mind.
The reason that Spider-Man matters to kids all over the world is that he's not a rich guy, he's not a god, you know, he doesn't have those kinds of powers. He just grew up in Queens, lives with his aunt, has a normal life, and has all your problems.
I mean, it was radical when the thing that's out there in the world is a more standard superhero. This is a guy who's picked at random. You can tell that it was made by immigrants. It's just got an everyman quality. It's inclusive, and you can tell it in the drawings.
Steve Ditko is an amazing artist. I've admired his comic books from when I was a kid, his knowledge of anatomy, and just the beauty with which he put down the line. I mean, as an artist, if I could possibly be able to bring even like a tiny bit of that into my storyboards, I would just be like on air.
Ditko had a very powerful, active drawing style. It's like a word in art, Ditko style.
Steve Ditko was so different from what had come before him because his characters had this pathos and anxiety that other superheroes hadn't had before that.
It's kind of a shock because they're really raw, but it's got a sort of bouncy, chaotic kind of energy to it.
Ditko's stuff is so clear.
Yeah.
To me, that's what I find so inspiring about it.
It's always very graphic, and the silhouettes are really strong, and it's very simple, clean storytelling. And so that was a real inspiration for this movie as far as anytime you have a complicated action sequence with a lot of characters, you want to make sure that the audience can follow what the goal is, what we're supposed to care about, what the emotion is. And so we would sort of think, well, what would Steve do?
He experimented with the way Spider-Man looked, the way the world around him looked. That's something that we were inspired by, not just visual homages to him, but actually trying to take the spirit of all that and embed it in the movie itself.
Steve Ditko really sort of was the leader in a visual revolution, a comic book revolution that started with Marvel and this character, Spider-Man. There isn't one single artist who ever looked at a comic book or a lover of animation that hasn't been inspired by Steve Ditko. He and Stan Lee really created this entire world that we got to make.
Growing up reading comic books, so many of the incredible comics that were created that have stood the test of time to this day were created by Stan Lee. He had an imagination and he poured himself into his characters.
Stan Lee was actually a very revolutionary storyteller at the time, because Stan actually, helped put the forefront to actual a creative narrative throughout the series of a title.
And his writing is so cheeky and colorful. It was engaging. It was like a lot of exclamation points, writing directly to the camera. And when you're 12, you've never seen anything like that before, and it blows your mind. We were all sad to hear Stan's passing. We've been reflecting on what he meant to all of us. And personally, I just remember reading his letters to fans in the comics. He would write a little note, and it would appear every month. And I remember how inclusive it felt. I remember that he would call us all true believers. It's not a top-down Mount Olympus sort of statement. It is we're in this together, we're all in the same club. And here is Stan, who's saying Excelsior, and telling us that even though we were little dorks who pored over these drawings, that there was nothing to be ashamed of, that it was cool and exciting.
Stan was always so inspiring to underdogs. The message that I always got from him was you feel different, you can still do great things.
I think that more than anything speaks to the legacy of what he wrote.
Stan Lee always had his eye on the ball in terms of your average person on the street, how are they going to relate to it? And I think Ditko was not afraid to be abstract and was really trying to push a lot of boundaries. And I think with both sensibilities really combined to form something unique.
They found such a simple, elegant truth in that character that anyone from any walk of life can identify with it. If someone says, you are now Spider-Man, and all you have to do is live by, with great power comes great responsibility, what would you do? I wrote Spider-Man for 18 years, and I never got bored. It was constantly feeding me truth to tell, and thinking about that often propelled the story for me. And I, every day, would thank Stan for that.
When I close my eyes, I can see it. The two of them are sitting in this beautiful place with white sky, watching this very old TV and looking at this movie and saying to each other, we love him. Yeah, Miles is cool. Welcome the new generation.
I'm going to miss him.
Yeah.
We were friends,
Can I return it if it doesn't fit?
It always fits. Eventually.
Excelsior! Excelsior!
Excelsior!
Excelsior! Excelsior! Excelsior!
Excelsior!
Excelsior!
Excelsior!
Excelsior!
Excelsior!
Excelsior.
Excelsior!
Easter eggs.
Comic book reference?
Did you notice that one?
Did you see that? It takes us so long to make these movies. We have to do something to amuse ourselves while we're doing it. You're gonna have a good old time.
Welcome to the alternate universe.
Oh
Okay, some of you guys may have noticed that the number 42 pops up more than once in this movie. That's because in the original Miles Morales comics, the number 42 represents the element of chance, the element of fate, the element of greatness. Even more than that, Jackie Robinson, Brooklyn Dodgers, his jersey was number 42. So chew on that one for a while.
On Ganke's shirt, which has a lovely pug on it, and that was based on the real-life dog of one of our character designers, Peter Chan.
Sarah Pacelli and I created Miles Morales in a separate universe, a Marvel universe called the Ultimate Universe, and she just did a special Ultimate Universe cover for the Spider-Verse movie. In this special cover that Sarah produced, he's wearing the Spider-Verse movie costume.
What's up with school?
Going great.
That's Donald Glover from Community, dressed as Spider-Man. While we were developing Miles, we saw this and we knew we were on the right track.
So making these movies completely takes you away from your family for a very long time. So I put my family into the movie. This is Leo, my youngest son. That down there is Luca, my older son. And this is Fifi, the nickname of my beautiful wife, Marguerite.
In the back of the comic seems to be some sort of pyramid scheme that has caricatures of a lot of people that worked on the movie.
Hey, that's me on the cover there, the criminal.
Portal is opening.
I see multiple dimensions opening.
The numbers that are listed on each universe are the universes in the comics world. Gwen's world, Miles' world, Peter's world, and the others.
I'm going to miss him.
Hey, look, it's anime Stan Lee.
Stan Lee cameo!
He's all over the movie. He has like 20 cameos.
All right. Thanks, New York.
Back. There.
Stan Lee. You know that's Stan Lee, right?
Stan Lee again.
Oh, that's pretty rad.
Hey, did you notice that?
Wait a minute.
You see that car? All alone in that car? Stan Lee, once again.
This guy's everywhere. In every piece of media that Phil and I do, there's always a dolphin and dolphin sound. Ostensibly, a dolphin from some sort of aquarium got sucked into our universe for a few seconds.
Yeah. This scene with the Kingpin, for those who know their comics, is inspired by the comics legend Bill Sienkiewicz, one of the greatest artists of all time.
One of the 6-shooters.
That's from the film Cat Ballou. Bit of a favorite of ours.
Indeed.
Well, why does Spider-Man have a dune buggy? Well, back in the 70s, he had a dune buggy, and he held on to it. Here it is. So here in Peter's lair, if you look closely, you'll see there's all kinds of references to his famous costumes from the comics. And there's even one from the PlayStation game. There's all kinds of other little things hidden all over the place, like a photo of Stan Lee and a photo of Spider-Man with Barack Obama.
We made another movie at this studio called Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs about a machine that makes food and spits it out onto Earth from the sky.
And it's right there.
They should fill this place up with fresh bread.
You all right, man?
Oh, yeah, totally.
Okay, good, because we are not getting any bread.
Those two guys right there, goatee and bald man. That is our head of effects, Danny Dimian, and that is Josh Beveridge, our head of animation. But apparently, in Miles' universe, they are important people in Kingpin's world.
We've talked about a handful of many, many Easter eggs that are in this movie, but it is dense with hundreds of them, and I challenge you to try and find them all. I don't even know if I know what they all are because so many...
We don't know the actual number.
Because...
So, just for our files...
It would be great to know.
If the consumer could do that for us. I want to see that page someday that has every single one listed.
Make me proud.